Hey everyone, Hans here. Today I'm back in the car. It's the second time ever, and I'm not keen to make this a regular thing, but I had to be in society again, civilization again. Anyways, what I'm gonna go on about today is the pagan sphere. Haven't done it in a while, and I think I want to lend my voice into that struggle. Let's call it. So one of the things that is nearly not enough talk about, although it is noticed everywhere but not called out properly, is the political and religious infiltrants. The infiltration from outer society into the pagan sphere. You might tell me that that you're already aware of that, but then please call it out. I know a lot of people who really care to see it for what it is. But there are also many newcomers, if you will, who are returning, as I would call it, return to their spiritual home, and they get immediately misled. I've run into people who say that they pray to Thor, each Sunday. I've run into people who think that King Arthur is going to rise from his grave mound, is going to lead the people again. It's like, guys, what are you doing? And then when you ask us, like, where did you get this idea? They point fingers at, oh, this guy and that guy, that woman. There are also those who say that that in the pagan sphere, everyone should just heed the women. Well, I think you who is listening to me, I hope so, realizes can immediately see these examples for what they are and say, yeah, but that comes from that religion or that is from that political movement where they want you to do or think these things or behave like that. I'm not gonna name them because I don't. I stand by the belief that you do not name those who seek to harm you by their chosen names. That is why I call many of them anti-whites. They will never call themselves that. They never will. And it is not a frivolous term. You cannot use it frivolously so long as you're dealing with intelligent people. Because someone who is falsely accused of being an anti-white, well, this accuser is making a huge reputational risk, right? Now, for me, the pagan sphere and the white positive sphere are one. That is uh, the concept that you can be white, that you can stand up for your people, for your heritage, and at the same time spit on your ancestors by, you can disagree, that is fine, but to outright deny and even book burn or put on the stake those who would stand up for their ancestral ways and fight for the legacy of those people to whom you own all of you or most of your abilities. Your very life comes from those people. Suppose you're free to deny that because our people is a good people and they will allow you your individual, let's say, right to disagree, to even be absolutely heinous, but then you will have to face the consequences. So yeah, these self-proclaimed goodies and Reikyas and druids and all these all these gurus basically, they have the right to be this way. But then it is up to decent, upstanding, good people who love their own, who love their way, the ways of other people who want to return to their spiritual home, to tell those types to F off and call them as anti-whites. It's like, if you choose to be an anti-white, then so be it. You totally get to make that choice. Wouldn't stop you. But then, once you enact on anti-white, or act in an anti-white way, you undertake anti-white commitments, there will be, well, there must be consequences for that. Now, for the newcomers who walk into the pagan sphere and they get told these things, that they should pray, that they should bow, that they should. What is all this weird stuff? Like, on the equinox, you need to drink this and build your altar and blah blah blah. Bitches. Who gave these types that authority? Is that even possible? Does anyone ask these questions? Where does that authority come from? Themselves? Well, that's convenient, isn't it? Their own inflated ego. Is that what you're gonna eat? Do you think those types of people will bring you to a healthy place in your life? And I've seen them. I've seen people who are just so desperate to hold on to something, and I get it. I never really was like that myself, but I get it. The thing is though, if you are like that, if you really need to find yourself, well, it's actually hidden in the word self. You find it within you. There is no external force that can bring you to a good place. But then those who have found themselves and realize that it is to stand up for their people, to stand by their ancestral ways, is that then you can, I suppose, what you might call hold hands together, and together you work for a better tomorrow. That is the balance between the individual and the collective that is own to, but you might say the white, to the white race, the Hyperboreans. But there are, of course, those, like I just said, who see that and they want to make profit of it. Or they want to mislead, they want to damage, they want to stop that from happening. So yeah, there are those who want it to happen so they can parasitize, and there are those who outright want to stop it from happening. They can do it for religious reasons. For example, they can be, well, from any religion or way of thinking that is historically, by historic evidence, can be known as aggressive towards, in a white positive ways, to the white ancestral ways. Cowardly, two-faced, trying to either parasitize or stop it, and lead people all the way back in a circle, back to these, these foreign ways. They will, if it must take a few generations, they'll do it. Doesn't bother them. They'll enrich themselves in the meantime. Laughing at anyone that really cared and really wanted to do the right thing, and then as their children and grandchildren become increasingly alienated again, and we're back into, well, I'm not even gonna name it. I think everyone knows that it's just harmful. If you're, you don't even need to be that great of a historian or what have you. Just open a book on the persecutions done towards our people. Even among all of these people, all these whites, for example, who chose foreign faiths, and they ended up massacring each other over it. What are they doing? What is that all about? Now, the psychology behind these types is, I think it's called little man syndrome. I've been studying a bit into it, but I'm still on my way. I've grasped some concepts, but I'm still, I wanted to share already what I've gotten so far. And little man syndrome is basically these types who it doesn't talk about physicality. It talks about how they are on the inside. These are people who have run away from what I think Jung, or is it? Oh man, there's actually so much to bring up. This covers Nietzsche, this covers Jung, and I also think Wilhelm Reich and a bit of Freud. And I know the last two are not white people, but nonetheless, they brought up some interesting points. Then only listen to Nietzsche and Jung, if it is that much of an issue. It's up to you. But I learn also from, well, I'm not sure if they were anti-whites, but I learn from everyone. I learn, observe from nature. That is just the smart thing to do if you wanna be able to adapt and survive, by the way. Then doesn't mean that because maybe real quick, it's not because you learn from a non-white that you now have to accept everything of their ways. No, just take the good, leave the bad. Or just take the good, and even if it's not bad, if it's not for you, if it's healthy for a non-white to live off rice with nothing but curry or something, it's like, no, go right ahead. It's not for my people though. Whatever you. This is a bit of a silly example, I know, but I don't have that much time left on this machine. So, you have in yourself the will to power, Nietzsche. But there is also the will to meaning. The will to power can be a driving force that pushes you forward in life. But it's also a dark side at the same time. It's that saying with the white wolf who stands for good and the black wolf who stands for bad, and the strongest one is the one you feed more, blah blah blah. The shadow is what we're gonna call it, is what I'm gonna call it now, as these men before did. The shadow is a good force, it drives you forward, but it can drive you to do bad things. Everyone has this. It's beyond a doubt. However, if you are suppressing the shadow, that's when it becomes dangerous. You can also choose to accept the dark part within yourself. What that means, it is part of the personal journey. There is no cupboard, functions for all way to deal with your shadow. But to acknowledge this part of you that you have, and it doesn't need to be anything sinister per se, but that you have a dark side to yourself. To acknowledge it and to understand, okay, like I have this capacity and it's scarce, and like I'm a bit afraid of myself in a certain sense, because that shadow is part of you, it is you. But then the life force, if you will, the will, as I would call it, life force, is the other half, and that part is that you want to work for life, you want to do good basically. That is also a part for you to acknowledge, and that's the part that everyone, or that most people, do like about themselves, even the worst. It's like that's where delusion eventually comes in, I think. But anyways, it's a vast topic, just saying. Conquering the shadow, bad idea. There are those who try to completely detach themselves from it, but it will always come back, because it is part of you. And here comes, and this is the big one, it's running away from yourself. So imagine then that someone has a dark side that this person represses, flees away from, but then the dark side eventually comes back, dressed up as something good. Doesn't that already sound a bit familiar to some people, in how some people behave? Don't we already see this in these infiltrants? That they pose as the great super duper guy, the goody, the Rekia, the druid, like they're here to lead you guys. They're here to show us the way. Because they know what's good, because they got rid of their shadow, they think. Or they delude themselves, I should say, because that shadow is still there. You cannot have light without shadow, except if there is nothing there. then you can only have light. But like in every good hot summer, a bit of shade can actually be very soothing. So, these types are basically like, what you call it? They scorch. They scorch everything. They want to scorch everything. They present themselves. They want, and here's the thing, because they are constantly suppressing themselves, or that part of themselves, they, unwilling, unable, whatever the reason is that they do not face it, which is their choice. It's always a choice. That means that they are always responsible for anything they do. Bear that in mind, please. That they now are gonna go out in the world, and in their flight from themselves, they're gonna start meddling with others. That's something that white people really love, don't they? All these meddlesome types, asking you or demanding you for material stuff, for empathy, for just be a good guy and just give up your stuff. Give up all of you. Does that sound familiar? So, these types, they come in, pose themselves as the sunny figure in the house, and there are gonna be those who are gonna be confused. They don't know they don't know what it's all about. They only know that they have this pulling. They have this pull to go back to their spiritual home. Their ancestors are basically calling out for them to come back. And these types are gonna tell you, the ones who can't even face themselves are gonna tell you how to live your life. Bit dangerous. No, I think so. Very dangerous. Because if you then have these types who are also in a tangle with themselves, a part of them was taken from them, which is their heritage, their history. These types will keep you away from it. How will they keep you away from it? By pretending that they're giving it to you, but they do it in their own warped fashion. And you will end up with a wretched life. Except there is one thing that these types, these wretches, do to balance out, the misery that by extent will follow, the depressions, the just the feeling, the ill feeling, as if like the life is being sucked out of you. They'll throw a party. They'll promise the power of promise. Why is there so little talk about that? They'll promise you all kinds of nice things. Go to Valhalla, guys, where you will feast forever and be surrounded by buxom Valkyries that will serve you your food. And it will be meat and it will be barbecue, from morning till dawn, and you fight. You fight like a true man, and then you die like a true man every day. And this is the message then of all these, of the biggest cowards who wouldn't raise a single, they wouldn't defend you if some external force came to cause physical harm. Don't you believe it? Or I suppose that's what they want, right? For you to believe it, because it's all about belief. Do you think that our ancestors would have been like that? Guys, just sit down and fall on your knees and pray, and we're all gonna pray so hard that the saber tooth is just, it's not gonna, it's just gonna leave us alone. It's been starving for 3 days straight, but will definitely leave us alone if we pray enough. Hail the Godi. What do you think that saber-tooth is gonna do? Well, you can be lucky and maybe the saber-tooth chooses the goatee, right? Or you know what, or the other good old trick. Oh, the saber-tooth took only one of the guys with him. No, might be back tomorrow, but for now the gods have spared us, haven't they? See how easily it gets abused, guys. So, the psychology is behind, go read it yourself. If you don't believe me. You don't have to. I never asked that. But I want my people back on track. I want my people's ways to return healthy, and that those of us who care do not have to deal with all of these sneaks and liars and infiltrants and what have you. It's just become so frustrating, boring, tiring. For some it's a bit scary, because a lot of these types, they are loudmouths. They've completely deluded themselves into thinking that they are the best of the best for denying their shadow. Right? And by extent, they will allow atrocities to take place. Do you also see in that how some of them can become full-fledged psychos if you give them enough time to hang in that delusion? Or, the opposite of that. Not opposite. How about those who are like that, flee from themselves, and they will keep fleeing, bit by bit, time by time, and every time someone says, no, you got it wrong, out come the torches and the pitchforks. And they will, history has shown it, they will slay anyone that cares. And then they will, like anything that is pure fire, pure scorching, it will run out of material to burn, and then ashes. What is the solution? Well, I think that facing your shadow is a big one. Accepting that it's part of you, and negotiate with it on a daily basis. Some might say that is difficult and it may hurt a bit, but that is the price for living like a decent person. It really is. Nobody said that it was going to be easy, but then again, why would it be necessarily easy? Can it not be that the challenge, that the struggle is part of life, is necessary for life? That is how you become perhaps a deity yourself. Personal apotheosis. And then in turn, what you then have achieved in life, it comes back in the memory of those who come after you. And now you're perhaps a Wodan, a Tyr, a Freyr, Idun, Epona, Tutatis, Jupiter, Artemis, whichever. Or a Hercules, if you want to go to half gods. Beowulfs. I think this will help people understand at least a little bit. And yeah, I'm still figuring it all out myself, but this is what I've garnered so far. You need to be your own man and your own woman first. Because and here is a big one, I've said it before, you cannot love anyone else before you love yourself. It's also a big one with these types. If you run away from yourself, you think that's loving yourself? No, that's self-loathing. You're gonna listen to someone who doesn't even like themselves? Needs to booze it away or eat barbecue meat all day? Every day? to just cope for their cowardice, if you will, because it is running. It's nothing but running with these types. Who needs to hear the voice of the masses to fool themselves, that everyone just shouts at them long enough how wonderful they are, they actually can believe it for the next 5 minutes. Because fire will burn things up. Scorching elements will scorch. You'll end nothing but ashes. I think that's all I can say for now. I'm gonna dig into this some more, but I would definitely recommend people to at least check Nietzsche and Jung. Shadow self archetypes are something I'm going to go into a bit more in the future. Is there something else? Maybe to end on a positive note, try to understand that if a lot of people can face themselves like this, you're gonna end up with a lot of healthier individuals. Like, there is just so much more that I can get into in regards to trauma that we're all born with, and Thule, Lemuria, all these ancient homelands. I've stumbled into quite a gold mine, if you will, of knowledge, and like that one-eyed deity. I'm gonna have to look into it a bit more. But for now, maybe that's a good first start. If you have been listening to these types, maybe consider listening to yourself first. And if it comes to maybe a good little help is when these scorching types show up, like these fire giants, maybe is a good way to describe them, the surtur in a way, just the scorching giants who will burn everything in their path, in their rage and their flight and coward, whatever it's gonna be. Maybe just present them with these questions, simple questions like, why are you so keen to call yourself better than your peers? Why do you need to fancy titles? Are you running away from something? Or is it why are you so addicted to boozing and to feasting? Why is that the only thing you look out for? Why is dying over and over again something that you look out for each day? Although then again, that one, there is more philosophy attached to that, but it can definitely be in a damaging way as with these types. It's like, why are you so morbid, necrophilous in your thinking? That death is something to look forward to. Because a lot of these people, they do project in everything they say. They're just trying to drag you with them, so they don't have to be miserable alone. Miserably love company, know that sentence? And when they then inevitably will either run away, toss a fit, well, they've just exposed themselves. It's not about having the last words, it's about the final action, I suppose. There's something else I can share. Just, if you care, if you're still looking for yourself, I should start there. Allow yourself, it's okay to be inspired by those who you think are doing the right thing, and emulate that, but make it your own way. That way you can never become someone's pawn, which is what these types want. Your ancestors want you to be your own self, in accordance with your community, with your people, but never just a blob, never just a brick in the wall. That is as anti-white as it can get. So yeah, what can one say? Become a hero. And I'm gonna leave it here because the machine is gonna give out. You'll have a good one and bye bye.